name is Marin Vale, 28 years old. People say money can't buy happiness, but I've always believed it buys something quieter, security. That was all I ever wanted. Not yachts, not sun-drenched vacations in Santorini, not even the shiny cars my brother flaunted. What I dreamed of was the kind of life where a flat tire or a surprise layoff didn't feel like the end of the world. I live in Riverside Heights, a neighborhood where the trees arch overhead like watchful elders, and the air tastes like something older than memory. 6 months ago, I did something my family never saw coming. I bought a house. Not just any house, but a 3-bedroom Craftsman tucked behind a white picket fence, its wraparound porch sagging with charm, its hardwood floors whispering with the weight of decades. The kitchen looked like it had been cut from a magazine, light spilling across marble counters that begged for flour dust and family dinners. I'd dreamed of a house like this since I was 12, sketching floor plans in the margins of math worksheets while the teacher droned on about fractions. Back then, everyone else saw me as ordinary, the overlooked middle child of the Hartford family. James, my older brother, was the golden boy, star quarterback, business degree, married to his college sweetheart Amber, and running Dad's construction company as though it had been built just for him. My younger sister Paige was the artistic one, her tuition and rent covered without question as she floated toward her MFA in Chicago. And me? I was the practical one, the girl who worked 2 jobs through community college, who scrimped and saved, who never asked for anything. James got a down payment gift. Paige got graduate school. I got lectures about responsibility. So when I finally scraped together enough for a down payment, 5 years of saving paychecks from dental hygiene work, plus weekend earnings from my small photography side business, I decided not to ask permission, not to seek approval, just to do it. The seller, Mrs. Kellerman, was a widow moving to Florida to be closer to her grandkids. She walked me through her memories of the place, birthday parties in the backyard, Christmas mornings by the fireplace, the way the kitchen window framed neighborhood children on their way to school. On closing day, she pressed the keys into my palm like a blessing. "This house needs family again," she told me, her eyes damp. "I think it's been waiting for you." For 3 months, I built a secret life inside those walls. I bought furniture, piece by piece, each item carefully chosen after weeks of saving. I planted tulip bulbs out front, strung fairy lights in the backyard, and even brought home a ginger tabby named Muffin, who curled in windowsills as if she'd always lived there. Some evenings, I sat on the porch swing with her, watching the sunset set the sky aflame, feeling a peace I had never known in the Hartford household. I told myself I'd reveal it at Christmas. My parents, my siblings, my best friend Savannah. I'd surprise them all during dinner. I pictured their shock, the silence, then maybe, finally, the pride I had spent my life chasing. But life rarely sticks to our plans. It was a Tuesday morning in late October when everything began to unravel. I was mid-appointment at the clinic, listening to Mrs. Patterson gripe about her son-in-law's eating habits, when my phone buzzed, a notification from my home security app. Yes, I had cameras. People teased me about being paranoid, but being single and alone after binging too many true crime documentaries will do that. I rarely check them during work, but something in my gut pushed me to glance at the screen. My blood froze. There, on the live feed from my front porch, stood my mother. Not only her, Amber was beside her, and with them, a tall blonde woman in an expensive coat I didn't recognize. My mother rummaged in her purse, pulled something out, and then, with a casual confidence that turned my veins to ice, slid a key into my lock. The timestamp read 7 minutes. They were already inside. "Mrs. Patterson," I blurted, my voice trembling. Though I forced a smile. "I'm so sorry, but I have a family emergency. We'll need to reschedule." I peeled off my gloves and bolted for the door, every step of the drive home thrumming with rage and disbelief. How did Mom have a key? How did she even know about the house? And why was she parading Amber and some stranger through my sanctuary like it was hers to show? By the time I pulled into Maple Ridge Drive, their cars were gone. From the curb, everything looked normal, but the moment I stepped through the doorway, the air shifted. It felt disturbed, unsettled, like an echo of strangers' footsteps still lingered. The front door sat slightly ajar. Mom had always been careless with locks. Cabinets gaped open, couch cushions were out of place, Even the refrigerator hummed with its door left cracked. My chest tightened as I crossed into the kitchen and saw it. A note, scrawled in my mother's familiar looping handwriting, sitting right on my counter. Marin, honey, I know you're upset, but this is for the best. Amber and Denise think this place has real potential. We'll talk tonight. Love, Mom. P.S. Cute cat. I sank onto the couch I had saved for 3 months to buy, the couch I had measured and remeasured until it fit just right. The betrayal hit me like a body blow. This wasn't just about trespassing. This was every dismissal, every time I'd been told to be appropriate, every reminder that I was the one who needed supervision, even at 28. For a moment, the room spun. Then a sharper realization sliced through the haze. The blonde woman hadn't just been sightseeing. A cushion bore a faint imprint, as though someone had sat with crossed legs. And on the hallway baseboard, just above the floor, a faint pencil mark, 36 in. Someone had been measuring. The house wasn't simply invaded, it was being evaluated. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed. Mom? Oh, good, you got my note, she chirped, as if this were about forgotten groceries. Listen, sweetie, I know you're probably confused. Confused? My voice cracked into something raw. How did you even get a key to my house? Her pause was brief, unbothered. Mrs. Kellerman's daughter is in my book club. When she mentioned selling to a young Hartford girl, well, I put 2 and 2 together. She had a spare, so You broke into my house, I cut in. Don't be dramatic. I was worried sick. That neighborhood isn't safe for a single woman, and honestly, Marin, this mortgage must be a stretch for you. The neighborhood was one of the nicest in town, but that wasn't the point. My mother's voice, laced with the same patronizing certainty I'd grown up with, burned hotter than any lock she had opened. You got a spare key and you brought strangers into my house? Amber and James might be interested in an investment property, and Denise is the best realtor in the county. I hung up before she could finish, my hands trembling, my throat thick. That night, as I lay awake, listening to Muffin's steady purr, I realized something with brutal clarity. This wasn't just about protecting a house. It was about proving, once and for all, that my life was mine, and if it meant locking out my own mother, then so be it. But I couldn't shake one thought. Who exactly was Denise measuring my home for? The note still burned in my hand hours later, its words circling my mind like vultures. Potential. That word had followed me my whole life, always wielded like a double-edged compliment. Potential to do more. Potential if I tried harder. Potential if only I were a little less me. By the time Mom called again, I had rehearsed my voice into ice. Marin, don't sound so upset, she said, that falsely cheerful lilt that meant she was gearing up to justify herself. Upset? My laugh came sharp, hollow. You broke into my house, Mom, with a key I never gave you, with strangers. Not strangers, sweetie. Amber and Denise. You've met Denise. I haven't, and that's not the point. How did you even get a key? There was a pause, and I could picture her pursing her lips, eyes darting like she was choosing which truth to admit. Mrs. Kellerman's daughter is in my book club. She still had a spare from when the house was listed. I only asked for it because I've been worried. Living alone, stretching your finances. Don't, I cut in, heat rising to my face. Don't pretend this was about concern. You weren't protecting me. You were controlling me. Silence. For a moment, I almost thought I'd landed a blow. Then she sighed. Marin, honey, you've always been so defensive. I just want what's appropriate for you. There it was again. Appropriate. The leash disguised as guidance. I hung up before my voice cracked. That night, I lay awake, Muffin curled against my side, my mind spinning. My sanctuary had been trespassed. My trust, twisted. If my family saw boundaries as suggestions, I needed to carve them into stone, or steel. The next morning, I called Secure Solutions. Jonathan, the locksmith, had the kind of weathered face that looked like it had seen too many messy divorces and late-night lockouts. He didn't flinch when I explained diplomatically that I had a family boundary issue. He simply nodded, tools in hand. Family disputes, he said, testing the new deadbolt with a click. Those are the worst kinds of break-ins. Good for you, taking control of your space. By afternoon, every door had a new lock, even the back gate. Jonathan left me with a jangling ring of new keys, their shine like a quiet promise. For the first time since the cameras caught Mom on my porch, I breathed a little easier. The peace lasted less than 24 hours. Thursday evening, as twilight bled across Maple Ridge, a thunderous pounding rattled my front door. "Marin Vale, you open this door right now." Mom's voice, piercing, demanding. I sat curled on the couch, Muffin purring in my lap, watching through the window as she jabbed the doorbell again and again. Porch light carved her face into sharp lines of anger and desperation. "I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway." My phone buzzed with her number, again and again. Finally, I swiped to answer. "Mom, we can talk," I said evenly, "but not inside, not like this." "Don't be ridiculous. Open the door so we can talk like adults." "We are talking," I replied, through the door. "Or better yet, you can call like a normal person next time." Her laugh was bitter. "Normal people don't change their locks to keep their mothers out. Normal mothers don't break into their daughter's home with strangers." Silence stretched. I could almost hear her recalibrating, shifting strategies. When she spoke again, her voice was sugar-laced but tight. "Honey, I should have asked before showing the house, but I was genuinely worried. That neighborhood, this mortgage, it's too much for someone in your position." My position? My chest burned. "You know what I mean. You're doing well, sweetheart, but this house is ambitious. James and Amber could help. Rent it to them, or sell and make a nice profit. Get something more appropriate." The word landed like a slap. Appropriate. My whole life in that word. Appropriate jobs, appropriate cars, appropriate apartments. But never this. Never something that felt like mine. "I'm not selling my house," I said, each syllable like a nailed board. "Marin, you're being stubborn. This is exactly the kind of short-sighted decision that worries your father and me. You can't just shut out your family when we're trying to help." I walked to the window, watched her framed in porch light, her hand clenched around her phone. Even from here, I recognized the look, the same one she wore whenever I refused to bend, concern curdled into control. "I'm not shutting you out," I said softly. "I'm setting boundaries. If you want to visit, you call first and ask. If I say no, you respect that. And you don't ever, ever bring people into my house without permission." Her voice cracked, the edges sharp with anger. "Fine, have it your way. But don't come crying when this house becomes too much to handle. Don't expect us to bail you out when you realize you've made a mistake." She hung up. Through the glass, I watched her march to Dad's old pickup, slam the door, and drive off into the night, taillights blazing like twin warnings. The house fell silent. I should have felt triumphant. I'd drawn a line, defended it, and for once, she couldn't step over. But instead, a hollowness spread through me. The victory tasted like ash. The next 2 weeks blurred into isolation. My phone stayed quiet. No calls from Mom, no texts from James. Even Paige sent only a curt message. Heard about the house. Maybe just apologize and move on. Apologize. For what? For wanting something of my own? For daring to believe I could build a life without permission slips from my family? I poured myself into the house instead, painted the guest bedroom lavender, hung the gallery wall of my photographs, each frame lined up like proof of existence, strung more lights across the backyard, their glow spilling into the darkness as if to push loneliness away. But no matter how much I worked, the silence pressed in, a silence my family had engineered. One evening, as I unpacked a box in the hall, I noticed something I'd missed before. Near the baseboard, a faint streak of perfume lingered, expensive, sharp, nothing like Mom's floral spray, and beside it, the pencil mark I'd spotted earlier. 36 in. The number was crisp, intentional. It hadn't been Mom who left that. Denise. She hadn't just looked, she'd measured. And suddenly the word on Mom's note echoed again, louder than ever. Potential. James showed up at the clinic 2 days later, just as I was finishing a chart. He leaned against the reception counter like he owned the place, still in his uniform of pressed khakis and a button-down. Even without the football pads of our high school years, he carried himself like a man used to applause. "Brent," he caught himself correcting. "Marin, we need to talk." I didn't look up right away. The ink of my pen dug a little too hard into the paper before I set it down. "Not today. I'm working. Mom told me what happened." His voice had the kind of calm that pretends to be reasonable, but is really just waiting to correct you. I lifted my eyes. "How long have you known?" He blinked. "Known what?" "That I bought a house. James, how long?" His face softened in guilt. Just a flicker, but I caught it. "A month. Mom figured it out. She asked me to talk to you. I told her to back off." He rubbed his neck. Clearly, she didn't listen. "You think?" I snapped. then lowered my voice as a patient glanced over. She broke into my home, James. She had a key I didn't give her. She brought people inside. She's worried about you, he countered. No, I said, heat rising to my throat. She's worried about control. There's a difference. He flinched, but only slightly. Still, you could have told us. We're family. That word, family. For James, it meant an endless net of support. For Paige, it meant tuition checks and encouragement. For me, it had always meant lectures, doubt, and the assumption I couldn't be trusted with my own life. I'm 28 years old, I said, my voice steady now. I don't need permission slips. And if you, Amber, or Mom show up uninvited again, I'll call the police. Not a threat, a promise. Color drained from his face. His lips parted, like he couldn't believe I'd dared. Jesus, Marin, she's our mother, not a criminal. She crossed a line. The waiting room had gone quiet, ears straining for drama. I stepped back, grabbed a chart, and turned away. Conversation over. But James' expression haunted me all day. That mixture of frustration and pity, the same look he wore when we were kids, and I didn't play by the rules he'd written. To him, I was difficult. To me, I was finally drawing lines he couldn't erase. That night, I called a locksmith again, just to confirm the new locks were secure. It felt paranoid, but I couldn't shake the image of Denise's pencil mark on my baseboard. The days dragged heavy after that. Silence from Mom. Silence from James. Even Paige, who usually floated above family chaos, sent only a curt text. Maybe just apologize and move on. Apologize for what? Owning my own home? For protecting it? For refusing to be treated like a child? I poured my energy into the house instead, painted the guest room lavender, soft and calming, installed shelves in the living room, my photographs lining the wall like a testament that I existed beyond their expectations. Each nail hammered into the drywall felt like a heartbeat staking its claim. But the silence lingered. Even Muffin sensed it, curling tighter against me at night, purring like she could drown out the emptiness. Then, one Thursday evening, the doorbell rang. "Open up, it's your actual best friend," Savannah's voice called, muffled through the wood. I opened the door to find her balancing a takeout bag from Luigi's in one hand and a bottle of red in the other. Her curls were wild in the porch light, her grin exasperated. "Thought I'd find you sulking," she said, brushing past me into the kitchen. And I was right. God, this place is gorgeous, though. She set the food down and spun slowly, taking it all in. "You've been holding out on me, Vale." Guilt prickled. "I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what? Buy a house? Live like an actual adult? You didn't tell me because you knew I'd ask the hard questions." She plopped onto the floor, cross-legged, opening cartons of chicken parmesan. "So, spill. Why is my best friend staging a one-woman feud with the Hartford clan?" I sat opposite her, legs folded under me, and for the first time in weeks, words tumbled free. I just wanted something that was mine. Something no one could have opinions about or try to fix or tell me was too much. Savannah's fork paused midair, and instead you're eating sad sandwiches alone, like a Victorian widow. She smirked. This is not the glow-up I envisioned. I laughed, but it cracked into something fragile. They don't respect me. They never have. Mom took a key from someone else's daughter. James thinks decisions about my life are open for family discussion. Even Dad just says to calm down. Savannah reached across the cartons, squeezed my hand. "So what's the end game? Cut them off forever?" The question hung heavy. I didn't answer. Later, after she left, I wandered the dark hallway. That pencil mark near the baseboard still glared back at me. And something else. An envelope had been slipped through the mail slot, unnoticed until now. It was a generic HOA courtesy notice, warning about unauthorized rentals in the neighborhood. But someone had circled that line in red ink and scrawled a question mark beside it. My chest tightened. They weren't just judging me, they were testing me. And I had no idea how far they'd go. 3 days later, I left work under a slate-gray sky, tired and ready to collapse into my couch. But the sight waiting in the parking lot froze me mid-step. James's Silverado sat near the curb, its familiar silver body a fixture in every family gathering. Only this time, it wasn't James behind the wheel. Amber rolled down the window, her blonde hair perfectly smoothed, though her face carried a tension I rarely saw. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than usual, stripped of the bubbly brightness she wore at dinners. I hesitated. gripping my bag strap. My instinct screamed, no. Amber and I had always been polite satellites in the same orbit, never close enough to collide. She was James's perfect complement, warm, charming, quick to make people feel comfortable. But with me, she'd never gone beyond pleasantries. This about the house? I asked flatly. It is, but not the way you think. She gestured to the passenger seat. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I climbed in. Amber immediately turned to face me. The confidence she usually radiated had cracked. Her smile was gone, replaced by something raw. I owe you an apology, she said. A big one. I blinked. That was not what I'd expected. James doesn't know I'm here. He'd probably be furious, but I can't let this go without telling you the truth. My pulse picked up. What truth? Amber took a shaky breath. Your mom didn't just randomly decide to show me your house. I asked her to. My stomach dropped. You what? Not the way it sounds, she rushed. God, this is coming out all wrong. Look, James and I, we've been having problems. Financial ones. Her eyes brimmed with shame. The company's struggling more than anyone realizes. We're behind on our mortgage. James is too proud to admit it, even to your parents. Especially to them. I stared at her, trying to reconcile the image. James, the golden boy, slipping behind on payments. James, who never missed a chance to remind me of his success, now drowning quietly. When your mom mentioned you'd bought a house, she continued. And I swear, Marin, I had no idea it was a secret. I panicked. I thought maybe you'd rent us a room, or let us house sit. I wasn't trying to take it from you. I was desperate. The pieces shifted in my head, forming an ugly mosaic. So you asked Mom to show you around. I asked if she thought you might be open to roommates. She said she'd find out. I never knew she'd break in with a realtor. When James told me what happened, I felt sick. This whole mess started with me. Silence pressed heavy in the cab. The only sound was the faint tick of the cooling engine. Why didn't James just ask me for help? I finally whispered. Amber gave a sad laugh, brittle at the edges. Pride. He's supposed to be the successful one. Asking his little sister would mean admitting he's not. Little sister. Even Amber saw me that way. I'm not little anymore, I murmured. Amber studied me, really looked for the first time. At my work badge, clipped to my pocket, the tired lines under my eyes, the steady way I sat. No, she agreed. You're not. And for what it's worth, your house. It's beautiful. You should be proud. Something shifted in my chest. The first recognition I'd received from any family member, and it came from the sister-in-law I'd barely known. But beneath the fragile truce, unease twisted. Mom hadn't just wandered in. She'd arrived with Denise, armed with measuring tape and an agenda. Amber's desperation had lit the spark, but Denise was the one who fanned it into a fire. And I couldn't shake the question, why Denise? I didn't sleep much that night. Amber's confession echoed, colliding with the image of pencil marks on my baseboard and the circled rental line on the HOA notice. By dawn, I made a decision. If they wanted a stage, I'd build it on my terms. That Saturday morning, I sent a group text. Family dinner. My place. Sunday, 6 p.m. Dress casual. I'm cooking. Responses came quickly. Confused emojis, tentative yeses. Mom called twice, but I ignored it. This wasn't a request. It was an invitation to witness. Sunday evening, I stood at the kitchen window, apron dusted with flour, watching their cars pull into the driveway one by one. Dad climbed out of his truck first, Mom close behind, nerves etched into her posture. James and Amber arrived in the Silverado, her carrying a bottle of wine like a peace offering. Paige, hair wild in a messy bun, rolled up last in her beat-up Subaru, Chicago grit still clinging to her. My heart pounded, but I steadied myself. I opened the door before they could knock. Welcome to my home, I said. This time, they would see it on my terms. The smell of garlic and simmering tomatoes filled the air as I pulled the lasagna from the oven, its edges crisping golden. My hands shook only a little as I set it on the table. For years, I'd imagined what it would feel like to welcome my family into a home of my own. I just hadn't expected the moment to arrive under such strained terms. When the door opened, I was ready. Welcome to my home, I said again, letting the words sit heavy in the foyer. They filed in, tentative, as though stepping onto foreign soil. Dad's gaze immediately swept over the crown molding and polished wood floors, his contractor's eye softening in appreciation. Paige brushed a hand across the lavender wall in the hallway, her artist's instincts lighting up. Amber offered the wine with a small smile, a fragile olive branch. Mom lingered, eyes darting around like she wanted to critique but couldn't quite find her footing. "This is," Dad began, running his hand along the restored mantelpiece. "It's gorgeous." Paige finished for him, her voice filled with quiet awe. "I can't believe you did all this yourself." I smiled tightly. Believe it. The tour I gave them was deliberate. Every room, every choice explained. The guest bedroom painted lavender, the floating shelves I installed, the gallery wall of my photographs. I watched their faces carefully. For once, they weren't seeing me as the afterthought child. They were seeing the home I had built. Dinner began quietly. Plates filled with lasagna, garlic bread, salad from vegetables I'd grown in the backyard. Silverware clinked against plates. The silence pressed until I broke it. "I want to tell you the story," I said, my voice steady. "How I got here." And I did. How I'd saved for 5 years, turning down trips, packing lunches, scraping every extra dollar. How I'd researched mortgage rates late into the night, studied inspection reports, and walked away from 3 other houses before this one. How the moment I saw this listing, I knew it was mine. Mom set down her fork. "But why didn't you tell us? We could have helped." "Because I wanted to do it myself," I said simply. "Because every time I've made a decision, someone in this family has had an opinion about how I could have done it better." The table went still. "James," I continued, turning to him, "when I started my photography business, you called it a hobby. Dad, when I got promoted at work, you said it was good experience for something more serious. Mom, when I bought my Jeep, you lectured me about why a sedan was more practical. Every choice I made has been minimized." Their silence was a confession. "I love you all," I said, voice thickening. "But I needed one thing, just one thing that was mine." Amber cleared her throat. All eyes turned to her. Her voice wavered, but she spoke anyway. "I owe you an apology, too. About the house. I should have come to you directly instead of through your mom." James's head snapped toward her, his face blanching. "Amber—" "It's true," she cut in. "I asked your mom because I was desperate. James and I have been struggling. The business is slower than he admits. We're behind on our mortgage." The words fell heavy, like stones breaking the surface of water. For the first time, I really looked at my brother, saw the tension in his jaw, the stress lines around his eyes, the pride that had kept him silent. "If you need help," I said softly, "you can ask me, but you ask me directly, and you respect whatever answer I give." James's throat worked. "Deal." Something loosened in my chest. But before I could breathe relief, Paige spoke. "Oh, speaking of houses," she said casually, swirling her wine. "I saw Denise at the courthouse last week. She had this big folder, and she was with Kendall Rowe." The name jolted me. Kendall Rowe, the investor who turned houses into short-term rentals, snapping up properties, and pushing families out. "What?" I asked sharply. Paige shrugged. "Yeah, they looked like they were filing something. She was bragging about potential properties." I didn't think much of it until now. The room shifted. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. "Denise was just helping." "Helping who?" I cut in. My heart pounded. "Because she wasn't helping me. She was measuring my house." No one spoke. The air buzzed with unease. We lingered at the table until nearly midnight. There were tears, raised voices, long silences, but also something we hadn't had in years: honesty. Dad admitted he sometimes confused pragmatism with wisdom. Mom confessed she feared my independence meant she'd lose me. James admitted his pride had become a cage. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When they finally left, Mom hugged me extra tight. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I should have said that first." Their taillights disappeared down Maple Ridge, but I stayed in the doorway long after. For the first time in weeks, the hollow ache inside me began to fill with something warmer. Still, as I turned back into the quiet house, Paige's words echoed. "Denise, Kendall Rowe, courthouse." This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was a battle line, and I had no intention of losing. The morning after the dinner, the house felt different. The walls still echoed with the weight of words spoken late into the night. For the first time, my family had really listened to me, but beneath the fragile hope, Paige's offhand remark kept circling. Denise, courthouse, Kendall Rowe. I couldn't ignore it. That afternoon, I drove to the county records office. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the air stale with old paper and ink. I scrolled through filings on the public terminals, my pulse quickening with each click. Then, there it was, a draft notice of interest prepared by Kendall Rose Investment Group. It hadn't been filed, but the property listed made my stomach turn. 847 Maple Ridge Drive. My house. It was a tactic I'd heard whispers about. Investors filing clouds on a title, spooking owners into selling or partnering under pressure. And Denise, conveniently the realtor helping my mother, had signed it as preparer. I leaned back, gripping the edge of the desk until my knuckles whitened. It wasn't paranoia. They had been circling my home like vultures. I needed clarity, so I called Mrs. Kellerman, the seller. She sounded delighted to hear from me. "How's the house treating you, dear?" "It's wonderful," I said, though my throat felt tight. "Can I ask, how did my mother get a key?" A pause, then a chuckle. "Oh, well, my daughter still had a spare from the listing period. She's in your mother's book club. Your mom said she wanted to surprise you. I thought it was sweet at the time." Sweet. The word made my stomach twist. I thanked her, hung up, and sat at my kitchen table staring at the pattern of light across the wood. My sanctuary had been weaponized, and my mother had handed it to someone like Denise. By evening, anger steadied into resolve. I gathered everything. Screenshots from my security cameras, the HOA notice, photos of the pencil mark, even Jonathan's invoice for the new locks. A paper trail of intrusion and intent. Then I called Mom. "We need to meet," I said. "You, me, Denise." She hesitated. "Honey, Denise was only—" "Tomorrow, 5 o'clock, at my house. Don't bring anyone else." The next evening, I opened my door not with welcome, but with restraint. Mom stepped inside first, her expression wary. Denise followed, cool and composed, her heels clicking against my hardwood like a gavel striking. "Marin," Denise said smoothly, as though we were colleagues instead of adversaries, "I think there's been some misunderstanding." I laid the documents on the table, explained the notice of interest with my address on it. Her smile barely faltered. It was preliminary, nothing filed, just exploring options. "Options," I repeated, the word sharp. "Like measuring my walls without permission, leaving marks on my baseboards, slipping notices through my door?" Denise's silence confirmed everything. I turned to Mom. "Do you understand now? This wasn't about helping me. This was about helping them. You gave someone access to my life who had no right to it." Mom's eyes filled, but she whispered, "You thought wrong," I cut in, voice trembling. "You trusted Denise's version of what I needed more than my own, and you handed over my home like it was a bargaining chip." Denise opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "If anything like this touches my property again, any filing, any unauthorized entry, I will pursue legal action, and I'll have the evidence to prove it." The air thickened. Mom looked between us, her face pale with dawning guilt. "Honey, I never meant—" "You meant to control," I said softly, "and you let someone else use that control for their profit." For a long moment, no one spoke. Denise finally gathered her folder, her mask of professionalism intact. "Then we're done here," she said, and walked out. Mom lingered, wringing her hands. "I was just scared you'd get in over your head." "I might," I admitted, "but if I do, it will be my mistake to make, not yours to prevent." Her eyes brimmed, but she nodded, finally small in a way I'd never seen her. She left without another word. That night, the house felt quiet again, but not hollow. For once, the silence belonged to me. And yet James's face haunted me. The truth Amber had spilled was real. He was in trouble. If Denise's schemes were circling me, how deep had they already sunk into him? By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called James. "Meet me," I said. "No Denise, no Mom, just us." When we sat down later that day, his bravado had cracked. He looked older, worn, like the weight of carrying the golden boy mantle had finally bent him. "I don't know how to fix it," he admitted, staring at his hands. "You don't have to know everything," I told him. "But if you want help, you ask me directly, on my terms. Not through Mom, not through Denise, me." His eyes lifted, raw and unsure. For once, there was no competition, no superiority. Just my brother. "Deal," he whispered. I leaned back, letting the tension ease, just a little. For the first time, I believed we might finally start rewriting what family meant. But I also knew Denise wouldn't vanish quietly. This battle wasn't over. Sunday evening, my family gathered again. This time, not for lasagna or accusations, but for clarity. I'd asked them to meet, and for once, they came on my terms. The air was heavy when Dad arrived first, calloused hands gripping a folder of papers like armor. Mom trailed him, subdued, her eyes avoiding mine. James and Amber came together, shoulders hunched with the weight of unspoken truths. Even Paige showed, messy hair pinned back, eyes darting as if bracing for a storm. I set the table with coffee mugs instead of wine glasses. No ceremony, no distractions, just the truth laid bare. I need to be clear about where we go from here, I began. This house is mine, not ours. Mine. I love you all, but I won't let anyone else decide what happens within these walls. Mom flinched, but stayed silent. I know some of you are struggling, I continued, glancing at James. If you need help, I'll listen. But you asked me directly, and you respect my answer, whether it's yes or no. There are no back doors into my life anymore. Not through Mom, not through Denise, especially not through strangers with clipboards. James's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. Deal. Amber squeezed his hand, relief washing over her face. For once, she looked at me not like a rival, but like an ally. Dad cleared his throat, voice rough. I should have trusted your judgment, Marin. I looked at you like a contractor looks at a blueprint, always thinking how it could be better. But this house, it's perfect. You made it that way. Mom's eyes filled, guilt and love fighting across her face. I confused control for care. I wanted to keep you safe, but all I did was push you away. I swallowed hard. I don't need perfect parents. I just need you to believe I know my own life. For the first time in years, silence at the table didn't feel hostile. It felt honest. Afterward, Dad lingered to study the mantel again, fingers tracing the wood like he was seeing it for the first time. Paige offered to contribute some of her art sales to help James, her voice awkward but sincere. Amber promised no more secrets. As for Denise, I'd already reported her to her brokerage. Her notice of interest was flagged for ethics review, and when I sent Kendall Rowe a packet of my documented evidence, including screenshots from the security cameras, the pencil marks, and Jonathan's locksmith invoice, I received a curt email. We will not be pursuing this property. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled without fear. That night, I sat on the porch swing, Muffin kneading at the blanket beside me, the sky painted in soft strokes of pink and gold. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Thanks for today. The house is amazing. You did good, sis. I read it twice, then tucked my phone away, letting the quiet wrap around me. I had finally earned belonging, not because they gave it, but because I demanded it, and they had met me at the door I chose to open. Yet, as I tidied the house later, putting away mugs and straightening chairs, I stumbled on something that made me pause. In the garage, wedged inside an old toolbox the previous owner had left behind, was a single unmarked key. Its edges were worn, its origin unknown. I turned it over in my palm, unease flickering in my chest. Some doors, it seemed, were still waiting to be discovered.